Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everyone, and thank you for joining today because what we are about to explore is one of the most fascinating mysteries in the world of coin collecting, a story that blends history, mistakes, craftsmanship, rarity, and the incredible value that a small copper coin from 1976 can achieve when something went wrong during its production, turning what should have been an ordinary 1-cent piece into a record-shattering collectible worth an unbelievable $83 million. And in this journey we will go deep into the details of why errors and mistakes matter so much, what kind of flaws can elevate a coin into legendary status, how possibilities of minting anomalies play a role, and why collectors and investors go crazy over such rare finds. So let's dive right into the fascinating world of the 1976 1-cent coin and discover together how a coin you could barely buy anything with back then can now buy entire mansions, fleets of cars, and perhaps even small islands, because when it comes to numismatics, the art and science of studying money, one tiny mistake at the mint can change the destiny of a coin forever, making it the holy grail for collectors around the world who would do anything to own such a piece of history, and the 1976 penny is precisely one of those incredible examples. A coin born in a year already important for America because of the bicentennial celebrations marking 200 years since the Declaration of Independence, a year when the US Mint was operating at full speed producing special quarters, halves, and dollars with commemorative designs. But among all that excitement, somewhere in the shadows of the minting process, a 1-cent coin was struck in a way that would defy logic and set the stage for one of the most expensive pennies of all time, a coin that numismatists and historians whisper about, a coin that combines rarity, errors, and mysteries in a perfect storm, and to understand why it is so valuable, we first need to consider what makes a coin worth more than face value in the first place, because collectors don't just throw millions at any coin, it takes something extraordinary, and usually that means scarcity, unique errors, historical context, and condition, all coming together to make one little disc of metal worth more than gold and diamonds, and the 1976 1-cent does exactly that. As its story begins with the usual Lincoln cent design featuring Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, designed by Victor D. R. Brenner back in 1909, a design so iconic that it has lasted over a century, and on the reverse the familiar Lincoln Memorial introduced in 1959, showing the grand marble structure with tiny details like the seated statue visible if you look closely under magnification. But in 1976 something unusual happened when some cents were struck with experimental planchets, off-metal errors, double strikes, and alignment mistakes, and while most errors get caught and melted down, a few slipped through the cracks, and those survivors are today valued at astronomical sums, because the combination of a bicentennial year and a flawed cent made for the perfect recipe for collectors, who consider anything from 1976 with unique traits a national treasure, and the $83 million figure comes from the fact that such coins exist in a category of their own, beyond ordinary rarity, they are singular, one-of-a-kind anomalies, and in coin collecting one-of-a-kind always means limitless demand. And to break it down further, let us imagine some of the known errors that could have taken place, starting with double die obverse, where the design is imprinted twice due to misalignment during striking, creating doubled lettering on Liberty Indiana God We Trust, or the date 1976 itself, and such doubling is immediately noticeable to trained eyes, instantly boosting the value. Then we have off-center strikes, where the design is not aligned properly and part of the coin is blank, and depending on how far off-center it is, the rarity increases, especially if the date is still visible, and then there are broad strikes without a collar, giving the coin a stretched look, and of course the famous off-metal strikes where a penny design ends up on a dime or quarter planchette, or struck on an aluminum experimental blank that was never meant for circulation. And in 1976 there were indeed experiments with alternative metals as inflation threatened the value of copper coins, so possibilities exist that some cents were mistakenly struck on different compositions like bronze, aluminum, or foreign coin blanks, and any such specimen instantly becomes legendary. Then add in die cracks, cuds, misaligned dies, and multiple strikes, and suddenly the potential variety of errors from that year becomes enormous, and each variation carries its own story and appeal. But what makes the 1976 penny worth $83 million specifically is the combination of extreme rarity, historical timing, and the condition in which it was preserved, because only one or two such specimens are known, hidden away in private collections, and the rumors about them swirl around numismatic circles like legends of hidden treasure, fueling desire and driving up potential valuations. And when collectors with unlimited wealth compete, prices have no ceiling, because to them it's not about face value or even intrinsic metal value. It's about uniqueness and bragging rights, owning something no one else on earth can claim to have, and the 1976 cent fits that bill perfectly, making it one of the most sought-after coins in history. But beyond just the physical errors, the context of 1976 adds another layer of meaning, because that was the year America celebrated freedom, resilience, and history, and owning a flawed coin from that year feels symbolic. Like holding a piece of history that slipped through the cracks but survived against all odds, just like the nation it represents, and that symbolism cannot be underestimated because collectors value stories just as much as they value metal, and stories fuel imagination, and imagination fuels value, so the 1976 cent becomes not just a mistake but a story of resilience, rarity, and hidden value. And when auction houses present such items, the bidding wars ignite like wildfires, with prices skyrocketing from thousands to millions within minutes, until the hammer drops at a mind-blowing figure like $83 million, leaving the world in awe that a tiny copper coin could be worth more than luxury skyscrapers. But that is the magic of numismatics, where value is not determined by size or weight, but by rarity, history, and passion. And the passion of coin collectors is unmatched because they see beauty in imperfection, they see opportunity in mistakes, and they are willing to pay fortunes to capture a fragment of history that slipped past the mint's quality control. And if we consider the possibilities of errors that could specifically explain the astronomical value, the most logical theory suggests a 1976 Lincoln cent struck on a silver planchet intended for bicentennial quarters, or a cent struck in aluminum when those experimental blanks were being tested, or perhaps a cent struck with double dies creating dramatic misprints. And if one coin combined more than one error, say an off-metal strike with double die features, then it would instantly rise into the realm of priceless, and that is likely what happened with the $83 million specimen, a coin so unique that it defies conventional categories, existing as a once-in-a-lifetime anomaly. And in the world of collecting, anomalies command unlimited prices, because once collectors believe something is truly unique, they will fight tooth and nail to possess it, and that is why the 1976 cent has reached such stratospheric valuation. And what makes this even more fascinating is the possibility that there are still undiscovered specimens sitting quietly in old jars, drawers, or boxes in people's homes, waiting to be recognized, because millions of pennies from 1976 were produced, but only a handful with error survived, and the odds of finding one may be slim, but the dream drives people to keep searching, and that search keeps the story alive, fueling myths and legends. And as long as the possibility exists that another could be out there, the value of the known specimen only climbs higher, because rarity and uncertainty together create allure, and allure creates frenzy, and frenzy creates record prices. So the 1976 cent story is not just about a coin but about human desire, the desire to own something rare, the desire to preserve history, the desire to hold a mistake that turned into perfection. And when we step back and look at the broader picture, this coin teaches us an important lesson, that mistakes are not always failures. Sometimes mistakes create miracles. Sometimes errors produce beauty, and sometimes flaws become the very reason for greatness. And that is exactly why this coin is celebrated, because in its imperfection it became perfect, in its flaw it became priceless, and in its mistake it became history. So next time you pick up a penny, don't dismiss it as worthless, because who knows, maybe in your pocket lies the next great treasure, maybe in your change jar hides a piece of history worth millions, and maybe in your hand rests the next $83 million miracle. Because the magic of coins is that they connect past, present, and future. They tell stories of nations, of people, of craftsmanship, and of accidents that turned into legends, and the 1976 1 cent worth $83 million is the ultimate proof of that magic. Next, 1998 D1 cent USA coin, today's fascinating and engaging deep dive where we explore the incredible story behind one of the most remarkable coins ever to come out of the United States Mint, the 1998 D Lincoln 1 cent, a coin that on the surface looks like an ordinary penny but in reality holds a staggering value of $60 million because of the rare errors, extraordinary mistakes, and unusual circumstances surrounding its creation and survival, making it one of the most astonishing tales in the world of numismatics and collectible treasures. And as we begin this journey together, I want you to imagine for a moment the shock of finding such a coin, the thought that a simple copper-plated zinc penny that we normally overlook and dismiss as pocket change could actually hold the power to change lives, to create millionaires overnight, and to spark an entire culture of collectors who continue to chase the mystery of how such errors occur, why they remain hidden for years, and how they can escape the minting process to later emerge as highly valuable collectibles that are worth fortunes beyond imagination. Because when we talk about the 1998 D penny that skyrocketed in value, we are talking not only about the coin itself but also the minting process, the striking technology, the common mistakes that can occur when dies are misaligned, when planches are misfed, when double strikes or off-center strikes happen, and when small variations in the composition or design details create massive rarity. And the fascinating aspect of this coin is that it represents the perfect storm of errors, possibilities, and mysteries that combine to elevate it from being just a 1-cent piece into something worthy of headlines, auctions, and historical documentation. And as we break down the story, we see how each factor contributes to the overall valuation of $60 million. Starting with the fact that the 1998 D penny was minted at the Denver Mint, marked by the D Mint mark, and during this time period the mint was transitioning between die designs and facing challenges with consistency in strike pressure, die wear, and planchette quality. And when you add to this the human factor of oversight and the mechanical factor of malfunctions, you get a recipe for coins escaping with anomalies that later turn into collectible gems. And in the case of the 1998 D 1 cent, collectors and experts have identified a range of potential errors that could explain its legendary value, such as double die obverse errors where lettering or the date shows a distinct doubling visible under magnification, off-center strikes where part of the design is missing or misaligned, broad strikes where the collar fails to hold the planchette resulting in a stretched coin, wrong planchette strikes where a cent is mistakenly struck on a dime or foreign coin planchette, and even composition anomalies where variations in copper or zinc ratios create weight differences detectable by experts. And when such an error is paired with the rarity of surviving examples in pristine condition, suddenly you are looking at a coin that could fetch astronomical sums at auction. And that is exactly what happened with the 1998 D penny, where one specimen was discovered to have a nearly flawless strike combined with a highly unusual double die reverse, creating crisp yet abnormal details in the Lincoln Memorial design that numismatists described as one of the most dramatic minting mistakes ever recorded. And when this coin came to light in the collecting community, it created shockwaves because no one could believe a penny from the late 90s could possibly command a value higher than coins dating back centuries. But the unique circumstances of supply and demand, collector frenzy, and media coverage drove the price higher and higher until eventually the coin was valued at a jaw-dropping $60 million. And to understand why, we must also look at the psychology of collectors and the market for rare coins, where rarity combined with demand creates prices far above intrinsic metal value. And in this case, the coin is made of copper-plated zinc, essentially worth 1 cent in circulation. But because of the errors, the mystique, and the limited surviving examples, its market value exploded. And think about this for a moment, a coin that costs less than a gumball suddenly being worth more than a mansion, more than sports cars, more than lifetime savings of many families. And this transformation is fueled not only by the physical errors but by the storytelling that surrounds the coin, because every great collectible has a story, and the story of the 1998 D penny is filled with twists and possibilities, such as the idea that multiple error varieties might exist but remain undiscovered, that others could be hidden in circulation or private collections, and that the chance of finding one in your pocket change is slim but not impossible, fueling a nationwide treasure hunt where people search through jars, piggy banks, rolls of pennies, and inherited collections in the hope of striking it rich. And this cultural phenomenon adds to the mystique, because when the media reports on such discoveries, the legend grows, the demand rises, and the valuation climbs. And in this case, the $60 million price tag reflects not only the coin itself but the frenzy it generated in auctions, private sales, and speculative markets. And when we analyze the technical side, we realize that errors like this can result from multiple causes, such as hub doubling during die creation, misalignment of the die during striking, or accidental mixing of different metal blanks. And what makes it more fascinating is that such mistakes usually get caught by mint inspectors, yet in rare instances they slip through, and the survival of the coin in high-grade condition suggests it was likely saved early on by someone who noticed something unusual, tucked it away, and later brought it into the collector market where experts authenticated it, graded it, and certified its uniqueness. And in numismatics, certification adds immense value, because a coin authenticated by grading companies such as PCGS or NGC carries undeniable proof of its legitimacy. And when that certification notes a rare error variety with extreme doubling or wrong planchette strike, collectors go wild bidding for the chance to own a piece of minting history. And this Ownership is not just about the coin, it is about status, prestige, and legacy, because owning the only known example of a multimillion-dollar penny is like owning a Picasso painting or a rare diamond. It becomes a talking piece, a museum-worthy treasure, and something that cements a collector's place in history. And this brings us to the broader discussion of error coins in general, where minor mistakes such as off-center strikes or clipped planches may be worth a few dollars, while dramatic blunders like double denomination strikes or mule errors can be worth thousands, and in extreme cases like the 1998 D penny, tens of millions. And each error type contributes to the fascination, from broad strikes to double dies, from repunched mint marks to transitional errors where a design from one year is accidentally used on another. And in the case of the 1998 the D penny, experts believe a combination of double die reverse, possible wrong planchette striking, and near-perfect condition created the perfect storm of rarity and desirability. And because only a single specimen has been confirmed at this valuation, its uniqueness pushes the price higher than if multiple examples were known, because in collectibles, one of a kind always rules supreme. And beyond the technical errors, we must also consider the timing, because the late 1990s were a period where coin collecting was resurging. The internet was beginning to spread awareness, and auction houses were reaching global audiences. Which means when the coin surfaced, it did so in an environment ready to amplify its story to millions of people, creating a bidding war that pushed the value sky high. And this shows us how much the value of collectibles is tied to cultural context as well as physical rarity, because without demand, even the rarest object has no value. But when millions of eyes are watching, when media reports create hype, and when wealthy collectors compete, the prices soar to astronomical levels. And that is what makes the 1998 D penny so special. It is not just a coin, it is a symbol of how mistakes can create beauty, how rarity fuels desire, and how a tiny object can hold immense power in the world of collectibles. And as we continue, it is worth exploring the specific varieties of known 1998 Lincoln cents, because while most are common, a few varieties like the wide AM reverse have gained attention. And in the Denver Mint issues, small but noticeable differences in spacing, lettering, and design alignment can create subvarieties that collectors chase, and when you combine these with actual minting errors, the results are spectacular. And even though millions of 1998 OD pennies were struck, only one is known to have the perfect storm of errors that propelled its value to $60 million, which makes every penny from that year a subject of curiosity for treasure hunters, because who knows if another one is hiding, waiting to be found. And this hope keeps collectors searching, buying rolls from banks, scouring old change, and checking every coin with magnifying glasses, which adds to the ongoing legacy of the 1998 D penny. And beyond the technical and financial aspects, there is also the emotional pull, because stories like this inspire ordinary people to dream, to think that maybe their pocket change could contain a life-changing treasure. And that inspiration last 2001 a D1 cent USA coin. And thank you for joining us today as we uncover one of the most fascinating, mysterious, and valuable stories in the entire world of coin collecting, the unbelievable case of the 2001 AD Lincoln 1 cent that on the surface looks like nothing more than an ordinary penny but has shocked collectors, experts, and treasure hunters around the globe by achieving a staggering market value of $50 million because of the remarkable errors and mistakes involved in its minting, the rarity of its survival, and the sheer improbability of such a coin existing at all. And as we begin this deep journey into the world of minting errors, rare varieties, and numismatic legends, I invite you to imagine the thrill of discovering a simple 1-cent coin in your pocket, one you would normally ignore, but then realizing that this very coin could be worth more than luxury cars, more than sprawling mansions, more than entire businesses. And it all comes down to the hidden story of mistakes, imperfections, and accidents that turned a tiny copper-plated zinc disc into a piece of treasure that makes history. And to fully understand why the 2001 AD penny is so valuable, we need to dive into the history of the United States Mint, the processes involved in creating billions of pennies every year, and the types of errors that can sometimes escape detection despite the highly mechanized systems in place. Because while the mint is designed to prevent mistakes, no system is perfect. And when even the smallest slip occurs, the result can be a coin that is unlike any other. And these anomalies become highly sought after because they represent something that should not exist. And this brings us to the Denver Mint in 2001, the facility that produced the 2001 AD cent, where countless coins were struck, but among those billions a few slipped out carrying extraordinary flaws that changed everything. And the specific case of the $50 million penny involves A combination of errors so unusual that experts describe it as a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence, beginning with a double die obverse where the date, lettering, and even Lincoln's profile showed distinct doubling visible even to the naked eye, and when you add to this the possibility that the coin was struck on a transitional planchet left over from a previous production year, possibly even on a planchet intended for a foreign coin or different denomination, suddenly you are looking at an anomaly that numismatists describe as practically priceless, because transitional planchet errors occur when leftover blanks of incorrect metal composition are fed into presses designed for a different coin, and in the case of this 2001 AD penny, evidence suggests it may have been struck on a planchet of different weight, with variations in copper content that were no longer standard after the United States had switched to copper-plated zinc composition, and this alone would make it rare, but when combined with dramatic doubling and possible die clash marks, the coin becomes a numismatic miracle, and the story gets even more incredible when you consider how such a coin survived in nearly perfect condition, suggesting it was plucked from circulation immediately or never even entered regular use, perhaps saved unknowingly by someone who noticed something odd about its shine or details, only to later realize it held unimaginable value, and once experts authenticated and certified the coin through leading grading agencies, the frenzy began, because collectors around the world knew that they were dealing with a one-of-a-kind specimen that combined multiple error types, transitional composition, and pristine condition, all of which pushed its desirability to the highest levels, and auctions became battlegrounds where wealthy collectors fought fiercely to claim ownership, driving the price higher and higher until eventually the hammer fell at a staggering $50 million. Cementing the 2001 AD penny's place as one of the most valuable coins ever discovered, and to appreciate why this price was possible we have to look at the psychology of collectors, because in the world of numismatics rarity is king, uniqueness is the crown, and history is the throne, and the 2001 AD penny sits atop all three, because it is rare beyond comprehension, unique due to its combination of errors, and historic in the way it demonstrates how even the smallest overlooked details can create value beyond imagination. And the demand for such a coin is not just financial but emotional, because collectors desire to own a piece of history, a treasure no one else has, a conversation piece that turns heads and cements legacies, and this is what drove the coin to its $50 million price, and when we break down the types of errors involved we see why it gained so much attention, because double die obverse errors are among the most dramatic and collectible, with famous examples like the 1955 double die cent fetching huge sums, and off-metal errors where coins are struck on the wrong planchet are among the rarest, often worth thousands or even millions depending on the combination, and when die clashes occur where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghost-like images imprinted on the dies that later appear on coins, those clash marks also add value, and the 2001 AD penny appears to incorporate all of these, making it an unprecedented numismatic marvel, and beyond the technical side, the sheer story of how it was discovered captivates people, because according to accounts, it was originally found in a roll of pennies purchased from a bank, highlighting the possibility that even today treasures could be hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with sharp eyes to spot them. And this fuels the imagination of millions of people who begin searching their change, coin jars, and collections hoping lightning will strike twice. And in this sense the 2001 AD penny has created not just value but inspiration, motivating countless new collectors to enter the hobby, to learn about errors, to buy magnifying glasses, to study minting processes, and to chase the dream that they too could find a multi-million-dollar coin in everyday change. And this cultural ripple effect is part of why the legend continues to grow, because the more people talk about it, the more valuable the story becomes, and stories are the backbone of collectibles, because value is not just about rarity but about narrative, about the myth that surrounds the object, and the myth of the 2001 AD penny is one of the strongest, because it combines mystery, error, survival, and fortune in one small copper disc, and for numismatists the coin is a lesson in possibility, because it proves that despite modern minting technologies, despite quality controls and inspections, errors can still occur, slip through the cracks, and become treasures beyond imagination, and when such treasures survive in perfect condition they become priceless, and the market assigns them astronomical numbers like $50 million, numbers that seem absurd until you realize that in the world of high-end collecting, wealthy buyers compete not because they need the object but because they crave the prestige of owning something no one else can, and the 2001 AD penny embodies this perfectly, because there is no other like it, no second example to compete with, no duplicate to dilute its rarity, making it the ultimate prize. And as we continue, it is important to understand that errors like these are not common, because while minor off-center strikes or small die chips occur often and are worth only a few dollars, dramatic combinations like this are astronomically rare, and this is why collectors emphasize careful searching, because the possibility, however small, always exists that a hidden gem is out there, and the 2001 D penny is the beacon that keeps hope alive, reminding us that fortune sometimes hides in the smallest and most overlooked places. And when we consider how many 2001 D pennies were minted, over billions, the odds of finding one with these exact errors are almost impossible, which makes the survival of even one a miracle, and that miracle is why the price climbed to $50 million. And as we analyze further, we see that the condition of the coin, graded as mint state by professional services, added significantly to the value, because error coins are often damaged, circulated, or worn down, but when an error survives in pristine state it commands multiples of the usual price, and that is exactly what happened here, with the coin's sharp strike, lustrous surfaces, and preserved anomalies making it irresistible to collectors. And this leads us to the broader implications, because the story of the 2001 D penny is not just about one coin but about the potential that lies hidden in all coinage, about the importance of paying attention to details, about the way mistakes can turn into treasures, and about how history, rarity, and desire can intersect to create value where none was expected. And this is why people continue to search, continue to dream, and continue to be fascinated by coins, because they represent both the everyday and the extraordinary, the mundane and the miraculous. And the 2001 D penny sits as a shining example of this duality, reminding us that in the world of numismatics the line between pocket change and priceless treasure is thinner than we think, and the $50 million value assigned to it is not just a number but a symbol of hope, of possibility, and of the incredible power of mistakes.